Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings. So we still have a rain warning issued that does expire this evening. We'll have a look at the UK, if you look at the precipitation and the temperatures. This rain will continue over the next 24 hours or so, but as we head into next week, it is looking likely it will turn quite a bit drier with higher pressure starting to build in. Initially, it's looking likely to be a cooler, colder, higher pressure system, perhaps with an easterly flow. We could see some frosts into next week. But there are signs as we head towards the middle of the month with the GFS, GM, Eastern WF and the ensembles. It could turn more into a warmer high pressure system with more of a southerly flow getting injected into the higher pressure. And that would give temperatures in the mid to high teens and could even get us to 20 degrees in around that middle of the month period, maybe as early as the Easter weekend, but we will have to see. Still is a good 10 days away or so, or sort of 7 to 10 days away, so we'll have to see exactly what happens, but definitely looking likely rain will be subsiding over the course of the next few days, turning a lot drier, but initially cooler, colder, perhaps turning warmer into the longer term. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. So you start on the live radar, you can see what we've got at the moment is Storm Mathis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it was named not by the UK Met Office, but by I think Meteo France for its impact across France at the moment. So a named storm. We did actually allude to it earlier this week. We said this could be a potential named storm, not issued by the Met Office, as we didn't have too many severe impacts for the UK, apart from some of these real heavy showers at the moment. So we did see some stronger winds, 60-70 mile per hour gusts in a few spots, more widely 40 or 50 miles per hour, and we have a rain warning in the southwest. So yellow warnings issued, but nothing too major. Again, if it was slightly higher wind speeds and slightly more widespread heavier rain, we could have seen this named by the UK Met Office, but it's named by the French Met Office, and you can see why. They've got some very gusty winds, some big, heavy, thundery showers. They're on more of the warmer side of the low, warmer side of the jet stream. So you've got southwesterly flow feeding into this area of low pressure, Storm Mathis, and you've got big thunderstorms breaking out on its southern edge, so really quite intense across parts of Europe. Now for the UK, we've actually got the centre of the low just clearing to our east now. On its backside, we've got initial weather fronts that are still lingering across parts of Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Wales and South West England, and this is slowly going to be progressing eastwards and could give quite a damp day in some places through the Midlands and Wales and Southern England through tomorrow. We'll have a look at the UKV for that in a minute. But the biggest impacts right now, as I'm recording this, are these big, heavy and even thundery showers breaking out through the Midlands, East Anglia into southern and southeastern England. They're pretty slow moving, spiralling around the high pressure system, and got some very high rainfall rates in here. Again, quite dangerous conditions to be driving. So if you are in this southeast quadrant over the course of this evening, I would make sure you have a look at the live radar, make sure no showers are imminent, and do be very vigilant driving, as a lot of surface water can appear in very short period of time in some of these showers, where you could see 10 to 20 millimetres of rain in the space of 15 minutes or so, which can cause some quite significant flooding, temporary flooding hopefully, but significant flooding nonetheless. So do make sure you do stay safe out there. I'm surprised there isn't a yellow rain warning issued for this, as I have had seen some images and experienced it myself looking out the window and seeing the roads. It is very dangerous when these big cores of the showers move through, these yellow and orange colours and even reds appearing when they move through. Really, really intense. Luckily, it's not a huge wall of rain. It is clearing through, but still, whenever these do impact at the moment through parts of southern London, we are seeing some really intense rainfall rates. Pretty dangerous conditions out there on the road, so make sure you do stay safe out there throughout the rest of the evening. Now, luckily, they should subside in intensity and gradually move away around sort of 7, 8 p.m. this evening, so it should get a little bit better, but still pretty horrible as of 3 p.m. If you look at the temperatures, you can see it's not especially mild today, but not especially cold either, generally around average for the time of year under the cloud and rain. Warmest conditions actually across parts of western Scotland, where you can see those temperatures are into the mid-teens, and that will continue over the coming days, which generally cooled around average, potentially going slightly below average into next week, as we do see generally a cooler sort of feel appear with an easterly flow under the higher pressure. But we have to remember it is drier, so we do get at least that one positive. But as I said, into longer term, it could become more of a drier, warmer, high pressure system. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, we do have a yellow rain warning. That was issued yesterday. Again, hasn't been updated, and we did cover it quite substantially in yesterday's video. But again, 15 to 25 millimetres falling, high likelihood lower, and the impact does expire probably a couple hours after you're watching this. So again, not too many impacts from that in the future. But I am surprised we're not seeing some sort of warning issued across parts of East Anglia, the Midlands, and southern and eastern England, just because of the surface water we're seeing from these intense showers. Again, it's one of those things where it is sort of touch and go, where we do see warnings issued for these sort of events, as we knew there were going to be heavy showers around, but they are looking really quite intense from what I have seen. So hopefully we don't hear of any accidents or anything too bad coming from this, or too many impacts of flooding or anything like that. But unfortunately, it does look likely from what I'm seeing outside and from the live radar, some areas will be having some issues. Now, if I do run over to the UKV and see what that is showing over the course of the next few days, we can see the latest for the heavier showers through this evening, and then what we've got in store for the weekend into the start of next week. Now, you can see those heavier showers popping off this afternoon. You see those darker reds appearing and brighter colours into the southeast. Again, showing quite intense showers. They're actually heavier, I'd say, in reality than this is showing, and more widespread. But as they clear away, the intensity does drop around 7-8 p.m. and they do clear towards sort of the south coast and away, as I said, losing intensity. However, that weather band across parts of Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Wales and South West England just sort of holds steady, and into tomorrow it does continue through the morning in places and could give some more heavier pulses through the morning, and another area of rain moving into parts of eastern England through Saturday afternoon. So it is generally drier today, drier tomorrow, but a lot more cloud, or still a lot of cloud around, and still areas of rain. Again, nothing as intense, but still light to moderate pulses moving through. As we head into Sunday, so the 2nd of April, you can see that easterly flow becoming established. You can see that easterly when you can follow those clouds coming in from the east under higher pressure, and it's a lot drier and could see a bit of sunshine out there. So we'll dry out our conditions a lot better. We'll see probably things starting to become a little bit more pleasant out there with some sunshine and dry weather in general. Into Monday, continues to be very dry. Again, weather fronts trying to approach from the west, but not having too much luck. Could give a bit of lighter rain and cloud in places before it does try to move through on Wednesday once again. But still, a good sort of 3 or 4 days of widespread dry conditions there before those weather fronts try to move in. We'll have to see what sort of inroads they do make. The general theme for the foreseeable future is for higher pressure, but we can't guarantee low pressure, or at least weather fronts won't get through that high pressure at times and give some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain. If you look at the mean sea level pressure, you can see we're under higher pressure through early next week, but you can see from the west that low pressure does try and budge in around the middle of the week, but it's likely to sort of ride over the higher pressure up to our north. So weather fronts could come in, but hopefully will only impact some limited areas in the far west, and it shouldn't be too intense as well, squeezing that energy away under the higher pressure. So hopefully nothing too substantial in terms of rainfall or unsettled conditions into the middle of next week, but there is the possibility there, especially in western areas. Now, if you look at the temperatures, we actually start on the upper air temperatures, you can see it is a chilly air mass into next week, perhaps a couple of degrees below freezing at 850 HPA, maybe slightly milder into the middle of the week, but still cooler air masses around. Again, not producing anything cold, no snow, nothing like that, but could be some frost around, and it could be generally a cool feel in the day. Now, if you look at those max temperatures for the surface conditions again today, around 10 to 12 degrees generally average for the time of year, nothing too great, and of course feeling cool under the rain and cloud. Through this evening into tomorrow, temperatures won't be all too cold overnight, maybe a frost in Scotland, and into tomorrow afternoon, temperatures once again perhaps 10 to 12 degrees, cooler in the far east where it's trapped on the cloud, a bit of an easterly flow, some rain, really only mid to high single digits, so quite a cool or cold feel there. Now into Sunday, we still keep that cooler feel, because into the afternoon, still struggling around that sort of 8 to 11 degree mark, but it is a lot drier. So it will be dry, but a cool feel, and then finally into Monday as well. Look at that overnight frost appearing with those cooler upper air temperatures and clearer skies. But into the afternoon, once again, sort of 8 to 11 degrees. And then to Tuesday, again, overnight frosts in a few places. And again, to the afternoon, 10 to 12 degrees. And that continues into Wednesday as well, where probably frost will be a little bit more isolated in far east and south, where we do avoid the cloud. So it is turning cooler next week, turning at least dry initially, widely, probably continuing to be dry in the east throughout the rest of the week, but perhaps could see some rainfall coming in for the middle of the week in the far west, but I wouldn't take that too literally at this stage, as it is still pretty uncertain. Now, if you have a look at the longer range, go for, of course, the GFS, GM, ECMWF and the ensembles. Now you can see the low pressure moving through at the moment, Storm Mathis, moving out to our east, and then we see that easterly flow as the high pressure builds in. That continues through most of the week, before we do see that low pressure trying to budge in through the middle of the week. Now, it doesn't make anywhere near as much inroads as the UKV shows, and that's why I said take that with a pinch of salt, and it might not bring that precipitation in. GFS definitely stays high pressure dominated, but it does have more of an easterly flow, so it will continue to be pretty cool into the Easter weekend. Probably some frosts around as well. However, if we continue to the longer range, you can see those ice bars start to tilt more from the south or southeast, which would introduce more of a milder air mass coming from the Mediterranean. I know it's only a subtle shift, but the wind direction coming from Scandinavia or the Mediterranean is still generally an easterly, more southeasterly from the Med than a northeasterly from Scandinavia, but it will make the difference between cooler, frostier conditions and warmer, potentially quite hot conditions for the time of year. Now, if you run back to those air masses, you'll be able to see into next week, we could see the 0 degree isoform come in. Again, nothing too cold, but cold enough to give frost, and that will continue all the way into the Easter weekend. We can see upper air temperatures are generally hovering around freezing at 850 HPA, a couple of degrees either side. That, again, is sort of average to maybe slightly below average in a few spots for the time of year. Beyond that, though, you can see more southerly sort of airflows get introduced, and I said right into the long range, you can see perhaps the 5 degree isotherm dominating, maybe even a 10 degree isotherm coming in from the far south. We can see this really quite well by having a look at the 2 meter temperatures, where we'll be able to see it does get pretty warm perhaps into the middle of April. Again, maybe 15 to 18 degrees there widely, maybe even a local 19 or 20 degrees. So pretty pleasant there in towards the middle of the month, and that is what could happen. We transition from a cooler to a warmer high pressure system, but we'll have to keep an eye on it, as it still might not come off and something else might evolve. But that's what's looking likely from the majority of runs and ensemble members at this stage. Not really seeing any budge from higher pressure, and definitely a bit of a warming trend appearing, especially in the ensemble members. Now, if you look at the GEM, see how that does compare. Again, Storm Mathis moving through at the moment. High pressure dominating, an easterly flow at least initially. Perhaps a bit of a westerly influence for a time in towards next week, end of next week, with a westerly flow in the north, a low pressure influence, but continue with a bit of an easterly flow all the way to actually day 10. So not too much of a warmer signal here. If we do look at the upper air temperature, you can see warm air does waft up, but we're still generally under cooler conditions, especially down the east coast, where it will still feel cool and there will still be frost with an easterly flow coming in. Again, the upper air temperatures don't always mean everything. When we look at the dew points, you see the dew points are widely in the low single digits, if not towards freezing, indicating quite dry, cool or cold air. And you look to our east still, Europe is covered in generally freezing dew points, so still quite a cold continent, and that will probably continue for a number of weeks before we start to build warmth as we head through the end of April into the start of May, and then of course in towards summer. So still some residual cooler, colder conditions across Europe, and that will just feed into our weather into the next week or so with these easterly flows. Now, if you look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, Storm Mathis moving through at the moment, high pressure building in, at least initially an easterly flow, perhaps a bit of a westerly influence next week, but especially in northern areas, before the high pressure does start to build in. It does build quite far northwards at day 10, and that would encourage an easterly flow, but initially it actually does pump up a bit of a warmer southerly flow. So this could sort of be interchanging between cooler and warmer high pressure, and could actually encourage a bit of showers in the northwest, being closer to this big low. So ECMWF still having a broad high pressure signal, but perhaps showing something slightly milder and wetter right at day 10. But equally, if that high pressure does continue to build and strengthen, it could turn us more to an easterly and bring in this colder air across the near continent. You can see there a few degrees below average and around the -5 region at 850 HPA. So generally cooler, colder conditions that could come in. Now, if you do look at the ensembles, you can see this really well reflected. This is the latest GFS. You see generally average to above or below average by a couple of degrees here or there, all the way to around the 10th of April. Again, some quite cool runs appearing, some milder runs appearing, but nothing particularly warm, nothing getting much above 2 or 3 degrees at 850 HPA, which at the best of times would give temperatures perhaps in the mid-teens. So nothing warm looking likely in the next week at least. But as we head around the 10th of April, in around 7 to 10 days' time, there is a trend towards perhaps a couple of degrees higher. Some getting up towards 5, 6 degrees, or even slightly higher than that in the longer term. Increased precipitation though, so perhaps a bit of an uncertainty there, perhaps with some unsettled conditions coming in. But at least for the foreseeable future, it's looking reasonably dry, very little precipitation for London, at least beyond the 2nd of April, and looking fairly average, maybe feeling slightly below average with that easterly flow before turning perhaps slightly warmer in the longer term. We see it well reflected by a look at the mean sea level pressure. Look how low we are at the moment, down towards 985 millibars, springboarding by around 50 millibars, a big amount, and that's higher pressure dominates all the way to at least the 10th of April and probably longer. Again, look at the dew points. Again, quite chilly for around the 2nd to the 6th, indicating definitely looking likely of a cooler easterly flow, and then it slowly does start to rise, where we do see some more uncertainty with the exact air mass. So definitely cooler, at least initially, could trend milder or even warmer beyond sort of the 6th to 10th of April period, as we do see perhaps warmer air move up from the south. Again, finally, just looking at the 2-meter temperatures, you can see that next week, highs around 9 to 10 degrees, nothing too great, feeling chilly, but of course, with some spring sunshine out there, April sunshine, it will feel warm in the sun, but if we did see a bit of trap cloud, it won't be all too great. And of course, overnight temperatures will be down to low single digits, if not below freezing, where we do see frosts in places with clearer skies. And of course, in the longer range, trending upwards, but not anything ridiculously high at this stage, as we still have a bit of a mixed signal with exactly the upper air temperatures we'll see for around the Easter weekend and beyond. If we finish by looking at the ECMWF ensembles, pretty similar, around average for the next week or so, really quite dry as well. Before into the longer range, definitely a signal for slightly higher upper air temperatures and still a generally drier signal. Again, look at the sea level pressure, a big rise up to around 1,035 millibars and staying generally around 1,020 millibars or higher for the foreseeable future. So we will just have to see, but at this stage, if you are hating this unsettled, wet, rainy conditions we have at the moment, it is going to be looking a lot better from around Sunday, Monday onwards. For most areas, it will be very dry, but unfortunately still a little bit chilly. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we see something a little bit warmer and drier for maybe as early as the Easter weekend, but looking more likely around the middle of the month. But I wouldn't say that is guaranteed as of yet. That's just looking the more likely scenario at this stage. Still, things have got a lot of room to wiggle, and we'll have to see what happens. As I said, the only good thing, the only real encouraging thing that we are pretty certain of is it's going to be pretty high pressure dominated, which does mean overall generally drier conditions. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you're all staying safe out there in the aftermath and sort of the last few hours of the impacts of Storm Mathis. I haven't seen anything too severe, but if you are seeing something quite intense where you are, I hope you do stay safe and it's not too bad. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you're looking forward to something a little bit drier next week, and I'll see you again for another video soon.